I heard about the death of Alex Okupo today from my husband, and it was extremely shocking to me. It's not like I knew him personally or I was even following him or anything, but for some reason I was so sad. And we had a few conversations surrounding it, which is the reason why I'm making this video. And I'm making the video because this is a thought that has weighed on my mind heavily for a few years now. And recently, or let me say this year or last year, I made a few changes in my life, and I was thinking I need to share it with you guys too. Maybe you're thinking like me, or maybe it's something you want to consider. So today when my husband and I were talking about the fact that many of our ancestors lived long. They did not have modernization. They did not have a lot of things, but they lived really long. My husband, in fact, said that a lot of his ancestors lived over 100. In my own family, my ancestors, at least 80. The only person who died earlier was my dad, and that was because he died from diabetes, which is also a modern problem. And I was now thinking about it that, first of all, let me say that this issue of young people dying is not a Nigerian problem. It's a global problem. The difference between Nigeria and other countries, for example, let me talk about the country that I live in, which is Germany. The difference is we have infrastructure. It's so bad that of the students I teach, as you all know, I have a private teaching service. Of the students I teach, at least 5 have different forms of cancer. One of them last week opened up to me that the reason she was late to class was because she's been suffering from cancer of the skin for 10 years now. And she was just like, oh, it's fine, normal, and stuff like that. I know people, aside those 5 people I'm talking about, my neighbors, I can say at least 5 of my neighbors. I can say at least 5. I even have a neighbor who has, is it plastic lungs or something? I'm just trying to tell you guys how infrastructure is what's keeping a lot of population alive in some developed countries. And give or take, you would agree with me that Germany is developed. Overdevelopment is even worrying it. Most of the things they talk about in America, we don't talk about them here. Everybody has health care. There is no sickness that is wrong with you. If they can patch you together, they'll patch you together, so. But we don't have that in Nigeria because our leaders have decided that driving big cars, eating, carrying women, showing that they have money, is what's more important. However, in the absence of all these things we are talking about on our own, what can we do about it? Which was the basis of our conversation and the things I have changed in my life. First of all, let me put a disclaimer that I'm not a medical person. I'm just somebody who observes pattern and who makes adjustment. You see, when we're growing up, at least I'll speak for myself, even though we're not rich, now that I'm older, I now realize that we weren't rich, but we were healthy. It was only malaria we had as a problem. It was only typhoid we had. There was nothing else. I don't know any other problem that, aside my father, who I said had diabetes, and even with the diabetes, he lived over 30 years with the diabetes. So we didn't have any kind of problem. So what were the things my mom, for example, used to do? My parents cooked with stainless steel pots. We ate with stainless steel plates, and then on special occasions, we ate with broken plates, or how do they call them? Those were special dishes, but normally we ate with stainless steel. Now, fast forward with the passage of time. Now, before I go with the passage of time, in that time, because we didn't even have extra money to go out, we used to eat just food. It was food. And if you all remember, there was a time in Nigeria when they used to say, rich man sickness. Rich man sickness. I don't know if that makes any sense. And it was when I came overseas, I then understood the meaning of rich man sickness, which was why even during COVID, people were expecting a lot of Africans to die, but that wasn't the case. So you can put 1 and 1 together. Like I said, this video is just about my thoughts. It's my thoughts. Don't take it seriously. My channel is all entertainment. I'm just here to ramble, right? So let's put that out there. In fact, the first time I saw a tefal pan, a non-stick pan, was with someone who just came to Nigeria. And you know, that time when they are showing you all those things, you'll be feeling as if you're local. You want to have it too. But recently, I told my husband, this was last year, I changed all my pots back to my stainless steel pot. And like I said, this video is not, in fact, I'm not pulling up statistics or anything, and I'm going to keep repeating it. It is just my thoughts. I started reading up about non-stick pans and things like that. And then I discovered that according to my research, those ones can be poisonous to the body, and it does it gradually. Then they've been talking about plastic chopping boards. And then we grew up back then, you remember that when I don't know about you guys, but my mom, when she wants to cut onions, this is how she used to cut back in those days. She used to use her hand. She never used to use chopping board, nothing. We used to use our hands to cut. We used to, like, when you start thinking about it, you'll be like, okay, a lot has really changed in the name of modernization. And it's almost as if as we got more money, we went closer to the modernization. So a lot of habits. Now we conveniently eat in plastic plates. We warm our foods in microwaves. Many of us have plastic chopping boards. I'm not sure there are many people who have stainless chopping boards. Many of us use non-stick pans in the name of fancy, you know, a lot of things. Not to talk about the increase in fast food. I never ate pizza while growing up. I never ate ice cream while growing up. I didn't eat sweets or chocolate. My mom was like strict. She didn't let me eat all those things. But you'll see that now, these are things we give our kids. So, what I'm saying in this segment of this video is, these are the changes I have made in my life, because it doesn't make sense to me that from when I was a child to now, times have really changed. And then there are people who will argue and say, social media just makes it look that way. Well, mine is not social media. I know these people. If of the people I'm teaching, if 5 have different forms of cancer, my neighbor 5, and then when I talk about family and friends, I will say 3. What exactly are you telling me? How can one person know at least 13 people? How? My brother visited me last week or last 2 weeks, and he was telling me how his friend, his age mate, my younger brother, died. One, the father has been given till January or so to leave. Like, it's alarming. It's not a conversation anymore that we are whispering about. So it is not social media. If for anything, social media is just exposing the things that we ought to have known all this while, if that makes any sense. Anyway, another thing is, and I noticed, is that as Nigerians, and this can apply to Africa and Black people, but I'll keep it to Nigerians. As Nigerians, we have a ridiculously prayer culture. And I know religious people are going to be offended, because anything that shakes your faith or anything that makes you question your religion feels like antagonism. You know, I get it. However, we have to start thinking critically, because dying before your time shouldn't be one of your God's plans, if that makes any sense. You can't be living lesser than your ancestors and say God knows best. No. So the reason I'm saying this is because as a Nigerian who lives in Germany, I go for my yearly checkup. I go to the dentist. However, I have never been to this appointment and met another Black person there. I have never. The only time I go to the gynecologist and I'm at the waiting room waiting and I see another Black person, that Black person is pregnant. So meaning, many of us, we transport our habits in Nigeria overseas, and we have this habit of, it cannot be me. I am covered by the blood of Jesus. We have that habit of thinking that the next person didn't have faith or the next person didn't pray enough. And so you would see that a lot of things that we're supposed to prevent just by going for your yearly checkup, you will not. The only time you guys go is when you start having symptoms. And the crazy thing about some certain sicknesses is it's only at stage 4 that you start to feel the symptoms. So if you had gone for your checkups, they would have found those things out. So I know that we all want to go to heaven, and at the same time, we still don't want to die. But that's a conversation for another time, or somebody else to talk about that. However, we need to start shifting from what we know to science. By science, I mean we need to educate ourselves. When we relocate, we need to know our rights. We need to know, because a lot of people are just dashing these insurance companies your money because you're not using them. And there are so many things, so many things. For example, I know somebody who, if he did not come to Europe, his jaw would have fallen off because everything was decayed and destroyed and he didn't know. So there are just so many things that you can prevent. So if you've managed and at least escaped or jackpot from Nigeria, don't come to a country and not use what you're paying for. Prevention is better than cure. Bye.